All right, welcome everyone. This is week 7 live class, and for this session, we'll be looking at forms. Previously, we've um, talked about forms in the life lessons, but we're just going to look at the different ways we can use to style the form. We're going to also create a form that we'll be applying the styles to as well. So we're going to start with creating the form. And for this illustration, we'll be creating a registration form. So I'm going to start by using the form tag. And for this same illustration, we're going to have the different attributes that as much as we're going to use different attributes as much as we can for the form attributes as well as the input attributes as well. So let's start with the form. So first we create our form by using the form elements, and you can see I'm from the provided form attributes my ID has given. You can see the different attributes, the action attributes and the method attributes. So I'm going to add more attributes to this form, and I'm going to explain them as well. Now, if I want to style this form, I can use the class attributes as well by giving a class and calling the class in my style and applying styles to it. Now, before we talk about the form attributes, let's create the different attributes that will be displayed on this form attribute first before we start explaining them one by one. So I'm also going to add more attributes to this form, and I want to have also complete. Now you can see already there are a list of form attributes here that can be used in the form open tag, which are referred to the form attributes. So here we have action, which we already have on the form, and we also have also complete. So I'm going to select also complete.
It is very nice.
And also we have the ENC type. I'm going to select the ENC type. I'll be explaining them one by one. And we have no validates. I'm going to select target first. Okay. Alright, I'm going to select name. No validates. So we would not be using all the attributes in the suggested attributes here. You can see there are much more attributes here. So we're just going to look at few of them, and the ones we're going to focus on this session, we're going to look at first the method. Okay, so let me go to the picture. Now, beginning from the start here, where we have the action. Now, the action basically just specifies, like I have here already suggested, an index.html, but the basic use of the action attribute specifies the URL where the form data will be sent upon submission. So once the URL is specified in this pair of quotes, here I already have the index.html. So my ID is suggesting that or recommending or things that if I want to submit this form, I'll be submitting to the index.html. Hello? Someone asked me a question.
Please, can you amplify your voice a bit?
Okay. Alright. So I was saying, can you hear me louder now?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I was explaining the attributes, and I started from the action attributes. Now I said the action attributes specifies the URL where the form data will be sent upon submission. So once this form has been filled, the data that have been imputed in the form will be sent to the URL, which will specify here in the action attributes. Also, if we intend to, we can also send this form, the data, to the database. But that would be when we're going to look at that when we move from the course 1 to course 2 for backend development. Alright, so next here we have method. Now the method specifies the HTTP method, and it's usually post or get. By default here we have post. So it's to be used when submitting the form as well, when we're submitting the form data. So we also have autocomplete. Now the autocomplete specifies whether the browser should automatically complete the input fields based on earlier user inputs. So let's say this form has already been filled before on the browser. So when we create the form and I have filled in some information already on the form and I want to refill again, let's say I want to start all over again and I want to input the data. Now the previous data that has been entered into the input field would the browser would try to suggest if I am maybe I type my name as Edmond in the name input field and I want to restart my entry, and if I type the first letter of my name E, the browser is going to suggest the rest of the name since it has been entered and it remembers that the name Edmond has been entered before, starting with the letter E. Then the ENC type specifies the encoding type of the form data when we are submitting it to the server. And next we have name, and this name will be used for validation as well when we are trying to have the form validated using JavaScript. And also we have no validate. No validate prevents the browser validation of the form data used for client-side validation. So these are the attributes that I am going to just use for this. So I won't be imputing any value since this is not going to be an official use, just for illustration purpose. Now we want to start with the form inputs and
the class attribute, like is it also part when creating the form, or it is just an illustration?
Yes, it depends on what you want. So the class attributes, if I want to use the class attributes, I'm going to specify a class, and the class will be called when I want to style the form.
Okay.
So if I don't want to apply a style to the form itself, to the general form, so I can just call the form element name itself alone, and that will be enough. But if maybe I have multiple forms on this page and I want to have a unique class for the forms, so that when I apply my styles to the form, it does not affect all the form, right? So I'm going to use the class. So this, I'm not going to impute any values in them. I'm just trying to describe what the use are for. There are more attributes that we can have inside the form elements. Alright, so let's begin with creating the form, and we're going to start with the heading, so we know the name of this form. And I'm going to use a H2, and the form we're creating today will be a registration form. Now, to create forms, we use the label elements for the form fields, and the label elements just describes what is meant to be entered on that part of the form, on that particular field. So I'm going to use the label, and the label has an attribute called for, and this for is where we specify a name that we are going to use to bind the label elements along with the input elements. So wherever we are going to enter the data into the input element, it's going to be binded with that particular label. So here we're going to specify a name, and for this label we are having this as name. So instead of having multiple names, I want to have a full name, and I'm going to name this full name. So the label is full name. And next we want to have the input field where the name can be entered, and we use the input elements. And for this type of input, since the name is a text, we are going to use an input type called text. And in the name attributes, so these attributes are the attributes we use to they have different functions, so we're going to be looking at them virtually as we fill them up. Now for the name, this name can be called whenever maybe we want to have validations too as well. And also this name is also going to be we're going to have the same name which as we've had already for the for attributes, to make sure that this is also bind to the label as well. So here we're going to have the same name as full name, and the value now for this name we do not need to use a value. So but what is very important we have here is the ID. So the ID is specifically what we are going to be using to also bind this input to the label, and the ID here will be the same name, which is full name. And another attribute we can have in the input field, we can have the placeholder attributes, so that several attributes, as you can see here, we can have in the input field, and it depends on the input type, the type of data that is required for this field. So since we want to have just the text here, so we're going to use the placeholder that would tell the user what is exactly to do in this field, and the placeholder will be enter your full name. And then we can also have another attribute called for, let's say we want to have the required mean length of letters that can be entered into this field. So we want to make sure that this field is required, that this field is compulsory for the user to fill. We use the attribute called required. Use the attribute required, and also we want to make sure that when the user is entering the name into this input field, that we want a minimum letter of 2. So we use the min length and the min length will be equal to and the max length of we're going to use here will be, so I'm going to use the attribute called max length.
The max length is outside the tag.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering. Thank you very much for that explanation. And the max length, we want to have total amount of letters to be no more than 50. So it could, the range now will be between 2 and 50. So any amount of words, letters that can be entered should be around this number. So this is enough. Most of the attributes you can have for this field. Now let's have another form field, and next we want to have a form field for email. So we use the label, and for the 4 attributes, we're going to give the name is email. The name of this field is email. Now for the input field, the text this time would not be text, since we are going to be inputting an email. We want to have this well formatted for email. So the name of this input field will be email. Name input type, is email, and the name now is also in I want to have also the placeholder attributes to tell the user what he needs to enter on this field. So I'm going to give a placeholder that says enter your email. And I also want to make sure that this field is required, so the user does not miss this input. I'm going to save this progressive. Let's see how it displays on our page. So you can see already we have the first label and the input, which is for full name, and the placeholder is playing inside the input folder. It says enter your full name just as we stated in the input element. And also for the email, we have the email label and the email input field, and the placeholder we have stated for the email as well. So these two are required. If I were to submit this form, to fill this form without filling this, if I were to submit this form without filling these spaces, the browser would refer me to this area to make sure that this data is entered. But this is not the proper way to validate a form. When we get to JavaScript, we're going to see how to create validations for our form to validate the form fields. But for just the HTML form, we can use this to make sure that this form field is required and the user must enter details into this field. So let's try creating other type of inputs. So we're not going to be able to create all the type of inputs because we want to create styles. We want to look at how we can create styles for the form, which was not very focused in the last lesson. So I'm just going to use create another type of label. So we're just going to look at few label input type, and then we go to the style sheet to create styles for the form. And next here, we can have a label for password. And this will be for password. And the name is password. I want to make sure that this column. The input type for password is password. So this is the type of input we use for password labels or password form fields. And the name here would be password as well as the ID. And because it's also a password field, we have to make sure that it has a placeholder and the required attributes and also a mean length to tell the user to make sure that the user does not have the weak password. So we want to make sure that the password is strong, so we make sure we use the attribute mean length to prevent the user from using a weak password, which is less than 6. So let's do that. Now the placeholder attribute is to tell the user to enter his password. Then we want to have the mean length and it should be 6, not less than 6, and this field must be entered. So we use the required attributes to enable that. Next we can have alright, so let me just do this. I'm going to create a field set. Let's say this will be for field set on a legend to give us a more structured form. So this is going to be like a caption for the form to let the user know what is going to be entered in this area. So for the legend, we're going to specify what's the caption we're going to use, and I want this to be personal detail. inside the field cells is where we want to have this form fields. I'm going to save this so we see how it is displayed. So we have the field set for personal details. So let's create another field set for something else, and we use the legend to specify the header. So let's say this is for others. In this field set, we want to have more labels. Let's have label for interest, so we can see, or okay, let's have label for, let's have label for interest. For this input, we want to have the type to be checkbox. So this value, we want to have it as ID. Name still remains interest. So we want to have different options for this particular label, and so for the first input field, we want to have this ID. For the next label that will be displayed below. So this is going to be for music. And below the input is where we want to have the label that will hold the title for music. So the label still. Now this label, the name, is going to be for music.
I have a question.
Okay.
Please, the label for the interest. Why is it that when you go to the ID side, you didn't make it interest, but you made it music?
Yes, because I want to bind the input field to this label, not the interest. So this label is just going to hold its title for this field, this particular area of the form. So the user knows exactly what he's meant to enter in this area of the form. So I'm going to save this so you see it properly. Now this is the second field set we created, and this is the name of the label, the title for this field. And in this field, we want to have options using the checkbox input type. Now, for you to be able to make sure that when we want to select this checkbox, that we are selecting this checkbox, answering this of inputting this data, giving this information that we are selecting music, we have to bind this input, which is the checkbox, to the option we are selecting. So if I bind it to interest, it means that I'm going to be selecting the interest as my option, which is not what we want from the user. We want to have different options. Yes. So I'm also going to create more options here for you to see this. So next, we're going to have the input first, and the type still is checkbox. So for this is going to have the ID for the next option. We want to have another interest, and this time let's say sports. So now, because we are not binding this to the interest label, I still wouldn't need this. I will need the name. So I can go ahead to create the label for this input, which will be for sports. And the name.
Didn't you write anything for the name?
Yes, the name remains for this interest, but I do not need to specify because for this illustration, I just want to bind the input field to the label. So whenever you select the input, that's the checkbox, it's going to let the system know that you're selecting the option for sports. I don't know if that's clear enough.
I don't get it.
Yeah. So the name, like I said, okay, sorry. I think that should cause this confusion. So I'm going to leave the name. The name is for this label. I think I should have not removed the name. I'm sorry about that. So the name remains interest for this label, but the option is going to be binded to the label below. That's why we use the ID music bind to the 4 attributes, which is music. So it's for this label, but the name remains interest. So when the
Okay, I
being
now
sent
get it.
okay, so when the data is being sent to the database, it's going to look for the name of this label. So the name of the
I
general
get it.
label
I
is
get it now.
so I should have left that there since it's required for you to understand. All right, now we've created 2 options. Let's see how it is displayed on the page. So you can see we have 2 options now for our interest. So the difference between the checkbox, because of time, I'm just going to state the difference between the checkbox and the radio is that for radio we can only select one, but for checkbox we use it for when we have multiple options to select, like we want to select more than one answer, so we can have this. But for radio we are not going to be doing this. So let's see if we can just quickly create a field for radio. So next we can have, so let's use gender for that. I'm just going to quickly do this because of time. The inputs, the type is radio. Now, just like we did for the checkbox, we're going to have an ID. And this will be for our mail label, which we're going to create now. And this label is for mail. So here's the name. And we're going to have another option. The type is still radio. And this time we're going to have a second option for female. And the label. So let's have the 4, and this time the name is gender. And the value, but it's going to have a value, and this time the value will be for male. It's going to be for female.
Please, what does the value attribute do? What does it do?
Okay, the value choose is what we are going to use to also send the input, the data that we're going to input into this field to the backend for storage or for the database. We're going to be using this. That what is entered is going to be for this. It's like we're going to have a container for this storage, and the value, the name of this container that will be entered here is the value. So whatever we input here will goes to this value in the backend. Exactly. So I'm going to save this and refresh. So now, like I said, the difference between the checkbox and the radio is that for checkbox you can have. So let me break this so you can see the difference here. So for checkbox, you see the interest, you can select multiple options, but for gender, we can only have one option. So because of time, I'm just going to start creating styles for this form. So you can always refer back to the class lesson for the different input types.
So
There are so many input types.
the radio, does the radio stands for male or female? The radio. What does the radio? What is the meaning of the radio?
The radio is the input type. Is the input type. Yeah, it's the name of the input type, and we use it for this type of options whereby you want to see the different options displayed, and they are going to be displayed in this way according to the labels we are using. So it might not only be for gender. You can use it for let's say another type of label. Let's say maybe country. So it just depends on the form you're creating and how you want to display. Let's say I want to use it for countries. So I want to say like this label. Now I'm going to change the label of gender to countries. Then I'm going to select. Or okay, let's say race. I want to change this to race. And then I want to change. I'm also going to change the names. I just want to give you a quick example. I want to change this to black. And I want to change this to let's say I'm going to make this Black American. African. All right. Now, this can also work as well. So as you can see, this assuming this was for a race option, and you can't be from these two race. You might have maybe dual citizenship, but yeah, for this option, we just want to know: are you African? Is your root African, or you are Black American? So you see, it can also work like this. It doesn't really have to be for only genders. So it just depends on the type of option you want to give and the field itself. So you just have to know where to use the input type. So I'm going to undo all this. Now, let's quickly look at how we can style our form. I'm going to add the button to put the button outside the field set. So let's have an option for button. We would have looked at the different field set, but you can refer to the class lesson to have more knowledge, and also you can explore the different field type online to research yourself which one would be more interest to you. So let's have a button, and for button we use just the input type called button. And for this type, we want this to be a submit type that will send these informations that will be entered into the field to where we specify on the action attribute. And the name of this is submit. I won't do anything. This I just want to show you. I just want to make sure we have a button there. So let's quickly start applying styles to this form. Now we already have the form elements. We didn't create classes for this for the elements, so we're just going to be using the element name to style this form. So let's first of all start with the the heading. Let's start with the H2. And I want the text to be aligned to the center. And to refresh to see where the text now is. So this is displayed at the center of the page. And next, we want to apply style to the form. So I'm going to use the form element. But if I had given the class name, I can use the class name as well. So I'm just going to use the form since I have just one form on this page. And for the form, I want the max width for responsiveness. I want it to be 400 px. I want the margin around the form, the space around the form, to be 0 top bottom, but also for the side. So it's going to automatically adjust the way depending on the browser and the screen size. Also want to apply styles to the label. So this is one part that you want to take seriously, because instead of using the var tag for separating the form fields, the labels, so we can easily do this in the style sheet. So for the label, we want the display to always be block, so they can display below each other in the block style. We also want them to have a margin at the bottom. So we use margin bottom, so there will be space before the next label. And the margin shouldn't be much. You can use 5px for this. So I'm going to save this. Let's see how this displays first before we. Oh, okay, sorry. I understand. Stop sharing. Alright, I'm going to refresh. Can you see my screen?
No, please. Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay. Alright, sorry, I mistakenly stopped sharing. Alright, now because of the properties I have applied to the elements, for the form I use the max weight of 400px, and I also use the margin for the sides, so there can be adjustable spaces around the form itself. And then also I used the display property to make sure that each label is in a block display. So you see now they are all displaying below each other in a block style instead of the inline styles that they were displaying. Now I also gave a margin bottom of 5px below each label, so you can have clear space between the label itself and the next element below it. So we can continue adding more styles to the form. Add styles to the input field, and we are going to use the input elements. Now, for us to be able to apply specific style to the different type of input fields, so we don't want to apply, maybe let's say we don't want to apply this style to all the general inputs on the form. We want to have specific input type that this style will be applied to. Now, to do this, we use the name input, and then in the square brackets we specify the type. So here I'm going to say that the type I want to style equal to, in a pair of quotes, I want to apply style to the text type, and I also want another type. So I'm just going to copy this. So as much type you want to apply styles to, you can have the input type here. So the next type here, since we have a type for email, let's apply style to the email, and we also have the type for password. So I'm going to apply style to the password as well. Now, if you also have maybe other inputs like select, so these are comma separated. If you want to have if we had inputs type like select or text area, you can also add them to this. Also add them here too as well. You just specify the name. You just type select, or you use the text area name just for text. You just include the elements as well. So these are what I want to apply styles to. And we'll start with the width. So I want the input field width to be 100%. And I also want the padding. I want padding of 8px. And I also want a space at the bottom of every input field that I've selected there, and I want a much more space than the label of 10px. And I also want a border. So it already has a border, but I want to make sure that I have a custom type of input field. So now I'm going to specify the width of the border to be 1px, and I want the type to be solid. It has a decimal color of light gray. And for the border, I want them to have radius, so I use the border radius property of 4px, not 2 curve. So this is going to create a curve at the edge of the border. And I also want okay, so this should do. Let's see how this displays. So the color I use now is now a bit light, but I'm going to apply more styles to make sure that the whole of the form looks good. So let's add the background color to the form. Let's use the normal gray. Check this displays. Okay, so this isn't so bad. So let's adjust the input field. I want this to be 50%. Since the 100% is too wide, so I want it to be 50% of the container. That's the form itself. Now you can see the form is already looking better and well presentable. Now we can also add more styles to this form. We can add maybe a start to the radio and checkbox. So I want to have a different style for the radio and checkbox. I'm going to copy this and specify that this is for the radio. This is for the checkbox. And a pair of curly braces. I'm going to give the star, and I want them to have a margin to the right of 5px. So you're going to see them come out a little bit, not really much, but enough to give enough space from the main margin of the form itself. Or we can do this so you can see how much it can go if we use a much more margin. So you see the margin to the left pushes it to the middle a little. So it depends on the type of form you also want to design. You can also style the button. So let's apply style to the button. And here I'm just going to specify that this is going to be the button element, and I'm going to also use this same style to specify the type. The type we used was submit. And we want the button to have a background color. So I'm going to use a hexadecimal color. It's going to be a shade of green. I'm going to save this and see. Okay, so this thing is applied properly. I'm going to check my color very well to be sure it's correct. Let's change the color. Let me see. I think I may have used the wrong color. Okay, so this is probably the color program. So let me just apply other styles. So I'm going to make sure that the text is going to have a color. But before that, I have to fix the background of the color. Next, let's have it to have a padding. At the top and bottom to be 10 px, and the sides to have a 20 px. And also I want the border radius of 4 px. I also want the cursor, once the mouse is hovering around over the button, it should have a cursor of the pointer sign. So I'm going to use pointer as a value. So you're going to see how this displays. And I want the width of the button to be 50% as well. I think the problem is from my syntax. I'm going to fix this now. Okay, so now you can see that the style is being affected. So I want to make sure too that you can decide to make sure the button displays at the media, but this is okay. So this, from what I'm trying to do here, you can see that I am deciding how the form should look like from my own idea. So you can as well design your buttons, design your input fields with the style that you feel more comfortable with. So I can as well still add more styles to this button. So I'm just going to create a hover. So I'm going to use this selector. Now this would be explained in your upcoming class lessons. So this is going to create a hover. Yeah. So we've talked about this type of styles when we apply the hover effect to the anchor tags. So I want to do something similar, and here I'm going to say I want the hover to take place when we hover around this button itself. So I want it to have a background color. save. And when I hover around, you're going to see a lighter shade of green on the button. Sorry, a darker shade to let the user know that he's about to, he's on the button and the button is active for click. Alright, so this is as much as I can go for the time. So you can explore and see other styles you can use to make your fonts come to life and look more stylish. You can even make sure that the colors are applied, the background colors applied to the field sets. You can apply styles to any of the elements depending on what you want, how you want the font to display. So this is where we're going to end this session. You can always reach out to me on the WhatsApp group if you have any challenge. So before I go, are there any questions you'd like to ask? Is there any question?
No for now.
All right. Great. So I wish you success in your assignments. Have a lovely weekend ahead. Bye, everyone.